Welcome to toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and this is part 2 of the restoration of a vintage G.I.Joe Snow Cat. In part 1 I did a lot of work repairing the missile launcher at the back and cleaning off the old stickers, so if you haven't watched that first episode I suggest you go and check that out. And now in this second part we're going to work on the cockpit area, because as you can see the windscreen wipers have fallen off this, and that seems to be a very common problem. We're missing this steering wheel, and I've got a nice solution for that. I've also got replacement stickers, those have arrived. And I'm actually going to do a bit of a custom on this as well, because this vehicle is really dying to have some lights fitted, so I'm going to fit a whole selection of lights to this to make it look really quite cool. But since filming the last video, a few packages have arrived of bits that I've been sort of purchasing and ordering off eBay, and some donations as well. The first thing to arrive was this, which is a lovely minty white Frostbite figure. I grabbed this off eBay. I think I paid about £8 for him. As you can see, he's in really very nice condition. Quite a difference to the one that I've got here already. So I was going to sort of touch this guy up. I'm still going to fix the paint on him, but really for this purpose I'm going to use this one because it's in such nice condition. And I've shown plenty of times before how to sort of repair and restore figures, so I don't think I need to do it on him. So he's going straight in the vehicle. I was also able to find the one missing missile that I needed. Again, this was an eBay purchase. I found a seller selling these. I think it cost me £2.50 to get that final missile, so I can slot that in there. And funnily enough, at the same time as buying that, the seller also had an unbroken version of the sort of missile launcher piece. So although I repaired that one in the previous video, I've now got an unbroken one that I can swap out if I ever want to in future. I've also received the replacement stickers. Now I bought these off the Toy Hacks website because these are printed in a very specific way, not something that I can print on my home printer. You need to be able to print white, and home printers don't generally print white. So I've ordered these off there and they've just arrived. Most of their stickers are really very good, so this is a nice set of them. I think the website is called Toy Hacks, although it does say reprolabels.com on here. I think they've got multiple addresses for the same site, so I will be putting those on the vehicle just to tidy it up. And then I had a very lovely donation from Philippe. He sent me a replacement canopy, which is broken, but it has a piece on it that I need just to work out how to reattach the windscreen wipers. And he's also sent me the windscreen wipers, which was the part that I was missing, so we can get on and fix up those, and that's going to be quite an interesting job. But the first thing I want to cover is the missing steering wheel. I'll show you a good replacement for that. So in the front of the Snow Cat, where Frostbite sits, there should be a little steering wheel that attaches to these 3 pegs here. I've not been able to find one of the sort of original versions of the steering wheel, but it just so happens that Lego make 3 types of steering wheel. They make a small steering wheel, they make a large steering wheel, and they also make this, which is a sort of medium-sized steering wheel. I'll put the number at the bottom of the screen if you want to grab one for yourself, and that seems to be just about the right size to sort of fit in the front of this. Now I will have to modify it slightly, because the way these sort of Lego pieces work, this steering wheel attaches to a Lego axle pin that has the sort of cross section on it, so you can see that that inserts in there, and we need something like that to attach it to these 3 pins here. There is a black piece, but you can't get this one with the little cross section on it. So what I'm going to do, you can see that fits really quite nicely on that middle peg, is just make a couple of modifications to this steering wheel. I'm going to drill out the little sort of lugs that are inside there. I'm going to chop off part of this steering wheel so it's a bit shorter, and then I'm going to insert one of these axle pins, these sort of black axle pins, into it, and then that will fit very nicely onto the sort of original peg that's inside the Snow Cat, and will look like quite a nice steering wheel. So let's make these quick modifications and we'll get that steering wheel attached. So it really was quite a simple job. I've just cut the back part of the steering wheel off, otherwise it tends to sort of stick out too far and it makes it quite awkward to get Frostbite in. And then I've chopped about half of one of these axle pins off so that it just pushes into the back part of that steering wheel, and you end up with a piece like that, and it actually looks really quite convincing. As you can see though, where I've cut, I've ended up with the plastic going a little bit lighter. To deal with that, I've just got a black marker pen, and with Lego you can just sort of draw over the sort of bits where you've cut and it will disappear. I could paint it, but I just find a black marker pen sort of hides any sort of little bits of blemishes like this, and it makes it look like a sort of a nice neat piece of plastic. And again with Lego, because it is Lego, you don't need to glue any of these pieces. All the Lego pieces sort of push fit together really very nicely, and they've got quite a tight fit, so I can push that on and that's not going anywhere. So there is a nice little replacement Lego steering wheel. If we bring in the Snow Cat, you can see I can now drop that onto the peg that's there, and Frostbite has a steering wheel to hold on to. I think this is slightly larger than the original steering wheel that came with this toy, but it actually looks really quite nice, and considering it's just a piece of Lego, it does the job very well. So I'm happy with that. At some point maybe I will find an original steering wheel, but in the meantime this is doing the job nicely. Now we come on to the windscreen wiper, and as I said at the start, very kindly Philippe sent me in a windscreen wiper. It's something that I couldn't find. It's a fairly simple piece of plastic, actually something you could probably make again. It doesn't really look like a windscreen wiper, but it's supposed to fit sort of at the front here and swipe left and right, and it's held on by this very tiny piece of plastic. If I bring in the windscreen that Philippe sent me, that is supposed to attach there, and it seems to be a very common problem for this piece to break off. But now that I have the piece, I can see exactly how it's supposed to work, and I think I'm going to be able to make something that actually clips on where this broken piece should be, clips onto the existing part of the windscreen, and then holds the windscreen wiper in place. So I'm going to make something out of some 1mm thick styrene sheet and just see if it works. As you see here, I do actually have a few different windscreens. I've got one which is quite yellowed, and this was the one that I showed in the last video, which actually doesn't look too bad, but at some point it's been bent out at the side. So I may try and fix this at some point. As you can see, it's actually got some sort of marks on it. Someone's scratched their name in the top of it. So I'm not going to bother fixing that one in this video, but it should be fixable just by putting that in some hot water. I should be able to reshape that. The one I'm going to use is this one, and I'm going to try and make something that recreates this tiny little peg out of styrene. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so this is what part of the project where I've got a vague idea of what I want to make, and I think I've just got to sort of go ahead and get cutting and see what happens. This is the windscreen wiper, and it should sort of hold on there with this tiny little clip that's snapped off, and my idea is to recreate this part of the clip just using some styrene sheet, but attach it to the windscreen using two pieces of plastic that sort of push either side of the remnants of what's left of where it's sort of broken off. So you have a bit that sort of clips down that way, and then something that recreates that over the top. And I'm going to be making it in white styrene because I think that will sort of fit in with the rest of the vehicle. And I think really I just, as I say, just got to sort of get making, and I'll show you what I make at the end. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll have to come up with another idea. But I have in my mind that this will work quite nicely. So let's see what happens. And here is what I have made. I've actually made a couple because I've gone through a few different sort of iterations of my idea. This was the first sort of finished one that I made. You can see it is a little clip that would clip onto the windscreen with a peg there to hold the windscreen wipers in place. But it just didn't sort of work quite how I wanted. So I made a sort of second version, and this is the one that I'm going with. So you can see this is the final version. A bit of a sort of a modification to it. So it still has the clip. This clips onto the windscreen. If I bring in the front of the Snow Cat, you can see it clips over where the piece has broken off and sits like that. And then you have a larger piece with a peg on it, and the peg will fit inside the windscreen wiper. So you can see that that just sort of clips onto there, and then you can rotate the windscreen wiper around, and it seems to do quite a reasonable job. Let's put this all on so you can see exactly how it works. So that clips onto there, and then we can shut the windscreen, and that still works and rotates round. Now obviously it doesn't look like the original one because the original one was made out of the clear plastic. In fact, that's the original one. But as a fix goes, I'm actually quite happy with how that looks. The fact it's made out of white styrene keeps it sort of looking like the rest of the vehicle, and it is quite sturdy as well. You can move this quite freely. Now it's held on quite tightly, so I probably don't need to glue it, but I am actually going to glue this one on just so that it is there permanently, and for that I'm going to be using some canopy glue. This glue dries very clear, so if I get any on any of these sort of other clear parts of the windscreen, it won't show up. So I'm just going to stick a little bit of that glue on and let that dry. Once that's done, we can then move on to putting the stickers on. But I think that is a pretty reasonable looking sort of replacement. It's not perfect, but it does the job, and it makes it that this windscreen wiper now works again. Now it's time to apply the replacement stickers that I picked up. To do this, I'm just going to be following images from the G.I.Joe website. They have some really nice images of all of the vehicles, and it's a good way of working out where the stickers should go. So I'm just going to use this and the sticker sheet and replace them as I go along. Some of the original stickers are still on here that I left on in the last video, and I am going to leave those as is. I'm just going to replace the ones that are missing. So it's going to have some vintage stickers and some replacement ones, a bit of a sort of mixture of both, but it shouldn't take too long to do. Let's get all of these stickers back on the Snow Cat. And here is the Snow Cat now with those stickers added. They do actually make quite a big difference. There's a lot of tiny little details that you get to stick all over the toy, and it just sort of brings it to life. It makes it look much more realistic. So I've stuck on all of the replacement ones. As I say, there's a few original ones left. You can see that's an original G.I. Joe sticker on that side, and I replaced the one on this side. So they're subtly different. I think that logo is slightly bigger. The reproduction stickers are not a perfect match, but they are a very close match indeed. And as you can see, it makes the toy look really quite nice. But we're not going to leave it like this because I think there's a scope for adding more to it. When I was taking this apart, it sort of occurred to me that there's a lot of space behind these light panels at the front, so I'm going to add some headlights there. There's also these two top lights that are dying to have some extra lights put in, so I'm going to add some lights there. And if we turn it around on the back, I thought there are a couple of holes sort of on this back panel, so we could add some reversing lights as well, so I'm going to add something there. But what I want to do is do this in a sort of non-permanent way, so I've designed some brackets that can be stuck in with double-sided sticky pads and can easily be removed. So we're going to add a whole load of lighting to this with switches and batteries, but if you ever want to remove it, you can take it off and it will be back to the normal vehicle with absolutely no permanent modification modifications made to the main toy. What I bought then is, if you go onto eBay, you can buy sort of RC lighting kits. Just search for remote control lighting kits, and there are a few people selling them, and you get all the components you need. So this is what's left from the pack that I bought. Here's a battery connector, which is a 9-volt battery connector. There's little light fittings, you get switches as well, and whatever sort of combinations of LED lights you like. So in this instance, I bought a pack that has 4 white LEDs, because we want to have 2 white LEDs at the front, 2 on the top here, and 2 red LEDs for the back. So the whole pack includes 6 LEDs, a switch, a little battery connector, and then some other little fittings which I'm not going to use. And to mount those into the toy, I've made my own brackets just using some offcuts of 2mm styrene sheet. I happen to have quite a lot of bits of black styrene sheet left, so what I've done is I've constructed these pieces. They're fairly simple. I'm not going to show you the sort of full process because it's essentially just cutting squares of plastic. So this is the mounting for the lights that go up in the top section of the Snow Cat. So it's a little panel just with a couple of holes drilled in it so that the lights can sit in there, and we're going to be attaching these with double-sided sticky pads. Then for the front section, I've made this, which is slightly more complicated just because there's an angled panel so that we can again stick the sticky pad on there and stick it inside the toy. Again, you can see that there are 2 LEDs. I've just drilled 3mm holes into the styrene because the LEDs I bought were 3mm diameters. You can just push those in, they don't need any gluing whatsoever. So that's the panel to go in the front part of the Snow Cat. I will show you these as I fit them into the toy, and this is probably the most complicated one just because I've had to cut a hole to put the switch mounting in there, because really what I want is the switch to be hidden as well. And if we open up the back of this Snow Cat, we'll just take this rear panel off like so. There's quite a lot of space inside it, and this will fit in the back of it and be hidden away, and I thought that was the best place of doing it. So you take the back panel off to switch the lights on and switch the lights off, and this is what I've made. Really, there's no sort of right or wrong way to do this. I just took measurements and sort of cut plastic until I found something that fitted. But I will show you these once I've fitted them. And the battery, if we turn this over, is going to be hidden here. We have to have a 9-volt battery, so these are these PP3 batteries, and with just a little bit of Velcro stuck on it, I'll stick some Velcro on here, we'll be able to stick that battery in there, and as you can see, that is quite nicely hidden. So let's get on and fit all of these panels that I've made. I've basically got to take the toy apart. Again, you saw me do that in the first part of this video, so check that out if you want to see how to take this toy apart. And we'll get all of these brackets fitted and then do a bit of soldering to join them all together. With the Snow Cat apart, you can see actually how much space there is inside it, which is why these brackets should work quite nicely. I've now stuck some double-sided tape to the back of them. These are just those double-sided sticky pads. They've got a bit of sponge to them. If we remove the sticky backs from this one, this is the rear one, so this is 2 red LEDs and a switch, and this I've designed so it just fits in right at the back of the Snow Cat, lined up completely with the sort of the back wall of it, and we can stick that in place. And that's the part that's going to be hidden by the rear door. If I just bring the rear door in, so that clips over there, and you can see we then have 2 red LEDs that just appear through those holes there, and I think that's going to be quite nice. Then to switch it on, you take the panel off and just hit the switch there. So that's one of the sets of lights. I'll just move the cables out of the way. All of these cables we need to sort of shorten and tidy up and stick to different places, just using some double-sided tape or something to keep them out of the way. But there's a lot of panels and places where you see you can put these wires, and we can solder them all together. Then we have the 2 lights for the top. Again, this is a very simple panel that I showed you. It's just a piece of plastic with some holes cut in it. Take off the backing of the little bits of double-sided tape, and then this one needs to be lined up with the sort of panels in the top. This one's a little bit more awkward to do just because I can't actually see where I'm supposed to be lining up with, but it should just fit in like that. Like so. And if we look at the front, yep, you can see there are now 2 LEDs in those light panels there. So again, we'll move the wires out of the way. And then this one is the most complicated. It's just got a slight angle to it because this one sits in here, and it's got to sort of sit behind the lights, but it's also got to avoid this clip, and that's the clip that holds the top part of the Snow Cat onto the bottom part of the Snow Cat. So I've designed it in such a way that these wires just sort of come behind it, and then there's a hole you can just about see there where my hand is shining through, and that's where the wire can come, and we'll then have to put this wire along the bottom sort of and then back in just behind the seats there so that we can join it up to the other wires. I think it will all work. At least in my head, all of this works quite neatly. We'll see when I come to solder it together. So just take the pad off that one, and then we can stick this in place. As I say, all of these are going to be sort of removable. So if you want to do this and then decide that you don't like it, you can just take them out, remove the sticky pads, and the vehicle is back to being sort of as it was out of the shop. But I think it's quite nice to be able to add lights and stuff. So stick that one in, and again, so if you look at the front, you can now see there are two LEDs through the front, and it's going to be really quite bright when this goes. If I get a quick battery here, and I'll just wire up one of these lights so you can see it lit, and you'll see what a sort of a bright effect it gives. So let's do that. Yeah, you can see that's just one light on, and it's really quite satisfying. So yeah, let's get all of this soldered together. I've got to solder in the battery connector and then join all of these together so that some of the wires go to the switch, and it gets quite complicated. I'm not going to show you this sort of the whole route to getting this all wired up. I'll show you that at the end, but it will all work once I have these joined together. Okay, so this is what I've ended up with. It looks far more complicated than it is. Basically, you've got to put the all of the positives from the LEDs together, all the negatives of the LEDs together, and that's why I've got this little chop block here. So basically all of the black wires go in one side, all of the red wires go in the other side, and the other side of the chop block is where it gets not complicated, but you've got to put a sort of a break in the wire to go to the switch. So the other side of the little chop block actually goes to the battery connector, but then one of those wires is split going to the switch at the back. It's not as complicated as it looks. It's just everything's had to be sort of wired in such a way that it joins up in the middle here. But I've now ended up with this. There's the battery connector, as you can see, and if I find my battery wherever I put it, which is there, and I plug this in, now if I switch the switch on the back, all of these lights come on, and they do. So you can see we've got two red lights here, the two white lights there are lighting up, and the ones at the front. So everything is working, and I can switch that off again. Now I've just got to sort of fiddle about with this so that actually I can put the toy back together with all of these wires in the correct place. I'm hoping everything should fit. I did sort of work it out again, as I say, in my mind that everything was going to fit, but sometimes things don't quite sort of go to plan. So we'll try and sort of rearrange this. It's awkward because the headlights on the front, the wire for those has to go through the bottom and back into the top section. So that's what makes this awkward. If we didn't have to do that, everything else is sort of relatively straightforward. So I'm just going to sort of push these wires about with my screwdriver, and we'll get this clipped together. So after a fair amount of sort of wiggling and jiggering to get the wires in place, and everything is now clipped back together. If I turn this over, you can see what the bottom of it looks like. So we've got the battery there with the little battery connector that comes through just above where the sort of top of the seat is, or the back part of the top of the seat is, and that is the only cable you can really see, and that's the one that goes to the headlights at the front. If you look just under here, you can just about see where the cables go along the back and into this back section, but with the piece of polystyrene there, you can see that hides all of the rest of it, and that's where the switch is. And so if I switch that, you'll see the rear lights come on. If I turn this round, you can see that we now got these upper lights lit and the headlights lit. You can't really see them that clearly in the bright lights of my studio, so I'm going to put the rest of this together and then we'll take some shots of it with everything working and see how those lights work. But I'm really pleased with how that has gone in, and the fact that it is a non-permanent modification. As I say, if you want to remove all of this, basically everything is stuck in place with sticky pads, so you just need to remove those and it's back to an original toy again. And here it is all back together. So from the outside it looks like just a normal Snow Cat. Everything works as before. If we turn it round, we can open up the boot. There's a switch just here, switch that on, and the lights are now on. Put that panel back on so you can see we've got some red lights at the back, and if we turn it round you've now got the headlights. And if I switch off my studio lights here, make this a little bit darker, you can see what the thing looks like. It looks really lovely. I think it's a much sort of nicer looking toy with those lights working. I'm amazed that Hasbro didn't do things like this sort of back when they were making it. They obviously had the ideas for it because they put in the clear panels already, and with a little bit of work you can see you can end up with something really very nice. It looks just sort of so much more interesting. And I think if you're going to be taking sort of action shots of this vehicle, then it's certainly worth the effort of putting these lights in, because it just looks so much more dramatic. And you can see that really it wasn't a huge amount of work. I bought a kit off eBay. I think those kits cost about sort of £6 or £7, and with a little bit of wiring knowledge and some time trying to work these things out, you can make something that looks like this. It's a whole lot more interesting and a very simple custom to do. And as I said, 100% removable. If you got bored of this and wanted to turn this back to an original toy, take it all out, remove the sticky tape and that, and it's back to normal. There's no holes or no extra pieces added that you cannot remove.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Now I do need to say a massive thank you to Grant, who very kindly sent in the remains of this Snow Cat for me to work on. It's been a really fun project and I've thoroughly enjoyed doing it. I ended up with something that looks really quite unique. I also need to say a big thank you to Philippe, who very kindly helped me out with the missing windscreen wiper and windscreen. So without those pieces I wouldn't have been able to get this vehicle finished. Now if you've enjoyed this video, I'd suggest you go and watch some of my other projects, because I've covered things not just G.I. Joe based. I've done all sorts of Star Wars and Transformers and He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, a bit of everything. So hopefully there's something there that will interest you. If you have enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.